forget. All right. Make sure I'm live here. We are live. And I want to do a watch party. So happy Wednesday, you guys. As you're hopping on, say hello. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you are in Arizona, you get extra points because our guest tonight is in Arizona. But let me do one last thing here. I need to share, make this a watch party. Hopefully it will let me start. I can start a watch party. And I'm going to put it on my personal page, newsfeed, Rick Shapiro. Hope never dies. Guys, sorry, I'm trying to get all the things going here. I need my own little assistant to get me going here. I'm starting the watch party. Your watch party is about to begin. Okay, as you're hopping on, say hello. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And tonight we have a very special guest. So I'm going to hurry and get through my little intros here about the group and tell you about our guest so that you can hear more from him than you do from me. But I got to make sure I'm on here as well. Yes, I have 3 screens going here. So happy Wednesday. I am Christie McConnon, and I am the founder and creator of Journey to Wholeness After Breast Cancer. And our mission in this group is to help women find their new normal after breast cancer. Because we all know that when you go through breast cancer, you feel anything but normal afterwards. So we're here to help you using plant-based essential oils to help you with self-care, wellness, and reducing toxins in your home. So if that is you, then you are in the right place. And like I said, as you're hopping on, tell us where you're tuning in from and what you would like to hear tonight. You saw the topic of the book, Hope Never Dies. Tell us what you want to learn. I see we have 4 people on here. Let me get my comments going here so I can see. Hello, Tracy. How are you, my dear? So hold on a second. I lost this over here. All right. So tonight I'm going to introduce to you Rick Shapiro. Let me get my intro here so I can get it all together here. So Rick Shapiro, it's funny because you guys know I like to be a Facebook stalker and find people that I think would add value to our group. Well, Rick found me on Facebook, and I don't know about you guys. And Rick, I haven't told you this story, so I hope you don't mind. Rick friend requested me, and I get like tons of friend requests from men that are usually not real men, weird accounts, and I block them. But when he friend requested me, I saw that, hey, he's a real person. And then I saw that he had written this book. And so, you know me, I'm like, I got to get to know this guy. So I private messaged him and said, hey, I would love for you to talk to my group. Would you be interested? And he said, yes, because, you know, people can't say no to Christie McConnon. So let me tell you about Rick, and then I'm going to bring him on here so you can hear him. So Rick Shapiro is the cancer consultant and author of Hope Never Dies. He has a BA, a Juris Doctorate. He's a former practicing attorney, a leading consultant, researcher, and educator in the field of safe, evidence-based, integrative, and alternative cancer treatments. He has engaged in deep research about efficacious therapies that are extending and saving lives beyond statistical norms generally found in the conventional cancer world. He collaborates with renowned doctors and researchers who are at the forefront of efficacious therapies. He has consulted with and coached cancer patients from all over the world, including China, New Zealand, Okinawa, Europe, throughout the United States, and in his hometown of Scottsdale, Arizona. The culmination of his work developed after cancer took his father's life over 20 years ago. is found in his book, Hope Never Dies. Shapiro is a passionate advocate who continually seeks to educate the public about proven life-saving medical therapies. He has interviewed hundreds of people who have stymied metastatic cancer and whom are thriving many years later, despite being given veritable death sentences by their conventional doctors. He believes there is much to be learned from terminal and late-stage patients who have beaten the odds. He is a member of numerous cancer associations and the board of directors of the Annie Appleseed Project, a nonprofit organization that educates people about personalized, integrative, innovative, and alternative science-based cancer therapies. So without further ado, let me bring on Rick Shapiro from Scottsdale, Arizona. So Rick, you should be on. We did it. Hi, Rick.
I can't see you.
You can't see me.
No.
That is bizarre.
And I clicked on that box.
Do you see yourself?
No.
Okay. What I would do, because we're both being seen right now, is minimize it. Did you close? Is it down at the bottom? Click on the little camera, the blue camera at the bottom.
Well, at the bottom, there's on the Zoom page, there's a round
circle. Click on the Zoom icon.
Okay, I'll try that. I just clicked on that. And then it says, hey there, I'm both the Zoom and virtual assistant.
Because we're on.
I'm just getting the virtual assistant person.
Did you close something a minute ago? Because
no,
we are both on.
You can see me, but I can't see you, I assume. You can see me.
Can you see yourself?
No, not at all.
Okay, that means you've closed a screen somewhere.
Not really. But,
Not minimize. Okay.
You want to try again? Can you try that again where it says?
Yes, I will.
That video thing. It says host has stopped your video.
Okay, there you
go.
Now
it says start my video. Let's see what happens.
Can you see me?
No.
That is so bizarre.
Well, I guess, no, I can't see you at all.
But you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, we're going to pretend like we're on the phone.
That's what I'll
Because everybody can see you, everybody can see me. That's the important part.
Oh, wait a second. Now, hold on.
So while you're doing that, let me tell you.
Now I can see you. Now I can see you.
Yay. Okay. So Rick, yeah, Connie, we got this here. We got it. Good. Okay, so we have Sandy on here. Hello, you guys. We have people literally from all over the country. Kim in Arkansas. You guys tell us where you're tuning in from and tell us, are you currently going through breast cancer? Has it metastasized? Are you, tell us what your story is in the chat box, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But Rick, thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm so excited to have you here and connect. It was funny when, I hope you didn't mind the story I shared about how we connected. You weren't one of the weird ones that I'm like, block, delete. So thank you. And, we connected yesterday and he was thinking, are we gonna still do this? I am teaching full time. And so it's like one day at a time, like triaging. So let's get started. I have your book here and I've read almost all of it. And there are 6 different women in here that had metastatic breast cancer. So I want you to touch on them at some point. But let's start. Why did you write Hope Never Dies? And how did this book come about?
Really, it was a couple of different situations. Back in 1996, March 29th to be exact, my father passed away from cancer. When that happened, I felt helpless and I felt hopeless. And all I thought that existed in the cancer world was conventional cancer methodologies and protocols. Going back even a little bit regarding my father, in January of 96, the conventional doctor said, let's bring out the big guns and aggressive chemo sometimes works with his type of with his type of cancer.
Uh-huh.
And 1 month later, the doctor came back, and after one cycle of chemo, which almost killed my father, he couldn't do any more than one cycle. The doctor said, "We look at your dad's situation as terminal." And that was those were sobering and shocking words to me, because I had a fantastic father. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I had a great father and a great mom. I was very fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
So he passed away. I just started wondering, after I saw the harsh treatment that he went through, if there was a better way. So in 2001, 5 years later, another episode happened where I decided to get a life insurance test to increase my life insurance. And the nurse came over, took blood, and got back to me and said, "Yes, we will give you more life insurance, but you have high liver enzymes, and we're not going to give you the best rates." And I said, "Really?" I had no clue what high liver enzymes were. So I sent the blood work to my doctor. I said, "Is this something or is this nothing?" Well, to make a long story short, he said they are high. They did an ultrasound, a CT scan. They sent me to a specialist, took out 8 vials of blood, and my liver enzyme numbers were escalating through the roof. And I was feeling serious discomfort right where my liver was, where it is, 12 times per day. I'd feel like someone was squeezing my liver in a vice. So something was going on. So then that particular specialist said, "Rick, I want to do a biopsy in your liver." And those were very scary words to me. I went across the hall to my internist, general doctor. He said, "I don't think you have liver cancer, but you may want to get this biopsy." And I said, "Let's make a deal." Just like the old TV show. "Let's make a deal." I said,
Was he into deal making?
Right. I'm in the deal making business. "Let's wait 30 days. And if my numbers start to come down within those 30 days towards the normal range, we'll put off this biopsy." He said, "Okay." So in that 30 days, starting from day one, I made radical, transformational nutritional changes in terms of what I ate and what I avoided eating. I also incorporated certain supplements into my protocol, and I was juicing religiously, heavily every single day,
Were
32
you
ounces.
juicing vegetables or fruit?
No fruit. I don't think it's a good idea to juice fruit, quite frankly. We can get to that, but just vegetables. And we're talking about spinach, parsley, kale, sometimes beets and carrots. Beets and carrots have sugar, but they're also good for the liver. But real heavy duty greens, 24 to 32 ounces a day, 6 days a week. So with these nutritional changes, taking a few supplements, in 30 days, my numbers came from an astronomical high, which was causing great discomfort in my liver, down towards the normal range. I never did the biopsy. That was 19 years ago in 2001. But it made me think that maybe there are things we could do that can alter the disease process without always going down the pharmaceutical route. So it just opened my eyes. And then I started thinking, Christie, that, you know what, 600,000 people die every year from cancer. Over 600,000 die from cancer every year. 1.7 to 1.8 million people are diagnosed every single year. Then I started thinking that in the war in Vietnam, over 10 years, 58,000 American soldiers died. Well, 58,000 Americans died from cancer every 5 weeks. You've
Wow.
got 38,000 people that die from automobile accidents every year. Every 3 weeks, you have 38,000 people die from cancer. So I just started contemplating whether there was a better way. And then I went literally up to this date right now, 30 cancer conferences. I'm on the board of 2 conferences. I speak at conferences around the country, and decided I needed to write this book because lots of people don't know that there are lots of approaches beyond and inclusive integratively of standard of care. The standard of care is defined really as chemo, radiation, and surgery. They
Right.
can be profoundly beneficial to optimize one's life in terms of lifespan, saving lives, enhancing quality of life, and extending lives. So I felt people needed to know about these things. And the 20 stories are about people who were all told, get your affairs in order. They all were given stage 4 and terminal prognoses. So that's where the book came about, just a great desire to help people and try to be a change agent, because people don't know these things. They just go to their doctor, they listen to their doctor. The doctor says, we need to start chemo on Tuesday. Like herd mentality, they just go down that road and they don't question things and dig deeper about the fact maybe there are other things we can bring to the table.
Do you think oftentimes people act out of fear and they don't know a different way, or a way that may not be as devastating to their, their system?
Absolutely. I mean, think about this rationally. Somebody gets a cancer diagnosis, and we know that lots of people get cancer. We all have friends, relatives, acquaintances, but we don't ever think it's going to happen to us. So
I
they get
didn't
a
think so. I mean, I thought, I've tried to lead a relatively healthy
healthy
life.
life. Nobody does. So you get this cancer diagnosis, and your mortality flashes before your eyes, and you think, "Oh my gosh, can this really be happening?" And you talked about fear. Well, think about the letters in the word fear. FEAR.
Mhm.
Forgetting every available resource. Fear.
Oh, I
So
like that.
yeah,
Or
we
I've
freak out.
also heard false evidence appearing real.
Yeah, that works as well. So I have a theory. When people are diagnosed with a serious late stage diagnosis, 1/3 of the world closes the blinds, puts their head under a pillow, and they kind of regress and into a depressive state. And it's understandable to be high stressed and go into a real depressed, high anxiety state. Another third of the world decides, let's say there's a couple, and one person says to the other, "Hey, let's go take that trip to Tahiti we never took, or let's go to Europe, and while I'm still healthy." And that maybe those two do something and travel. But then there's that last third who says, "You know what? I'm not buying it. Maybe there are other things we can bring to the table, and I want to be here for Susie's wedding. I want to be here 10 years from now. I want to be here 20 years from now. I want to be an outlier and an outstanding, extraordinary exception." And I have met personally, Christie, well over 500 people who were told to get their affairs in order by major cancer centers at cancer conferences nationwide. So yeah,
So,
fear is really something that can push people back, but something we need to try and overcome within a few days or a week or two and say, okay, let's try and get it together and not let fear control the outcome here.
right. And, coming from, I didn't have a medical background at all. And when you go to the doctor, you trust them and trust that their education, and I respect their education, but there has to be another way that, I think we put our 100% trust in them and don't trust ourselves to find answers elsewhere. So I think that's what happens to a lot of people.
Well, they're trained in a certain way. I mean, when you go to medical school, you're trained dogmatically in a certain way, and this is the way it's done. They're never trained to look at certain other things that may not be pharmaceutical medicine. And a lot of conventional medicine is pharmaceutical medicine. Now, I'm not anti-drug. I'm not even anti-chemo in certain circumstances, but there's a better way to do chemo if you go down that road integratively. But it's the way you're trained, and they're not trained. If you look at a naturopathic doctor who specializes in oncology, they are trained in a certain way as well, but not, they're trained in lots of ways that are different from your medical doctors.
Mhm.
It has to do with your training and your upbringing.
Right. So does attitude really matter when it comes to fighting cancer? Do you think that plays a part?
Big time. Think about attitude with respect to anything in life. Anything. You want to attain a certain goal, you want to accomplish, you want to be able to run a marathon, you want to be able to climb that local mountain. If you go up, if you try to run that marathon and say, well, I don't think I'm going to make it, I don't have the discipline, there's no way I'm going to make it, but I'm going to try. How's that going to turn out? So yes, you have to try and find that inner resolve, that inner strength, that fighting spirit.
Right.
And again, if you, that first few days, maybe that first week or two, you're just in a real anxiety ridden and high stress status, I understand that. Anybody would. But then you have to say, okay, let's deal with this. Let's deal with it head on, and let's find a way. So yes,
So what's the first step you think people should take to overcome their fear?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What's the first step you think people should take to overcome the fear? I mean, okay, maybe chemo or other things aren't the right way. What should be the next step?
I think that goes to the concept of hope. And hope is critical. But what does that mean? If somebody has a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, which is a very rough cancer, a glioblastoma, which is a brain cancer, lung cancer, which is really rough, and all of them are challenging. You want to know that somebody else walked in your shoes. Somebody else had that advanced stage or late stage diagnosis, and maybe even a dire prognosis where somebody told someone else, get your affairs in order. And they're here 15, 20, 25 years later. And I'm here to tell you assertively, regardless of what anyone says, there are many people who walk in those shoes. So if you have that concept of hope, that's how you can find that inner strength. That's how you can overcome some of that fear and generate more of that positive attitude going forward. Realize, Christie, that you are not a statistic. You are not a statistic. You are a statistic of one. And when a doctor says you've got 3 months to live, they're looking at statistics of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, but many of them probably did not implement or incorporate certain other evidence-based, safe treatments and therapies that can save lives. They just went down a conventional road.
So what about that person that, doesn't have loads of money and is not sure where to go first? What do you suggest that they do first?
That is very honestly a difficult problem because obviously pharmaceutical medicine and conventional medicine, and by the way, I have a conventional doctor and I have a naturopath, both. But pharmaceutical medicine and conventional medicine is reimbursed by insurance companies. And that's great. And lots of methodologies in the complementary world are not reimbursed. So that's challenging. But you can do certain things that help yourself from a nutritional standpoint, the kinds of food you eat and the kinds of food you avoid. It's not going to be paid for by insurance, but setting that platform and changing that inner environment is very important, the microenvironment. Certain types of supplements that you can take that can be profoundly beneficial. Exercise, and we can get into all of these in more depth, but exercise is important to bring oxygen-rich blood to your tissues. Mind-body approaches can be very, very helpful. So those are things you can do that, again, with the help of sophisticated doctors, can be very powerful in this systematic, multifaceted approach, comprehensive approach to beating cancer.
So what if they're looking for an integrative doctor, what are some questions how can they find the right person, the right fit for them?
Very good question, because there's no guidebook that says this particular doctor, he or she is the most fantastic doctor on the planet Earth for your situation. You got I think an integrative approach is a really good way to deal with cancer. So if you have an oncologist, for example, you want to have an open-minded oncologist. If you have a closed-minded oncologist, I'd find a different oncologist. You need someone who'll work with other complementary specialists. There is an organization.
So wait, let me ask, when you say closed-minded, do you mean they're only open to their treatment plan? Is that what you mean by closed-minded?
Yes, and they will not, they may not cooperate with or work in tandem with other specialists who may want to bring other approaches to the table.
Right.
There's an organization called SIO, Society of Integrative Oncologists, SIO. I've been to their conference, and they have an annual conference, and you might find some good oncologists who are open-minded in the SIO organization. In the naturopathic world, there are naturopaths who specialize in oncology and cancer. And if a naturopath has behind their license as being an MD, FABNO, F as in Frank, ABNO, FABNO, that means they're a specialist in cancer. Oh. There's a website, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but if you put into Google something like naturopaths, FABNO, I'm sure you'll find the website, and it'll tell you what FABNO naturopaths may be in your region. That's another approach. There are certainly other people who may not be doctors, naturopaths or MDs, who are functional medicine doctors who also take a holistic whole body approach. And there are specialists just in the nutrition area or the supplementation area, but people who take it to a deep science, not just who grab information off the internet. Right. And they exist as well. But it takes talking to people who you trust, who have been doing this for many years and who are real experts and real specialists, not someone who just hung a shingle last week.
Yeah, and is there a website that you would recommend that people go to find someone in their area?
there's no one website, but in terms of oncologists, you have to either ask around in the region where you're living or go to that SIO website, put into Google Society of Integrative Oncology, and you'll find it. Or for naturopaths, put in the word naturopath, FABNO, as in Frank, Abby, Betty, Nancy, Oscar, Fabno.
Yeah.
And you'll find those types of doctors as well, the naturopaths. And I think that's a good start. In the book that I wrote, by the way, there are 5 experts who I interviewed as well. And I think they are all absolute cutting edge. And they're people who work with people in terms of consultations over the phone or through Skype or Zoom as well. They can be fantastically helpful.
Yes. Okay. So let me see if we have any questions here. And as you're watching, if you have any questions for Rick, please put them in the chat box. And we are going to be giving away a signed copy of Rick's book tonight. So how do you get that? So you need to tag 7 people. Yes, 7 people in the broadcast tonight. Ask questions, make comments. And the other one is type #excited. So I'm going to make you work for that book. So, okay. So I have another question for you. What causes cancer? Because why do some people get it and some don't?
Contrary to popular perception, only 5 to 10% of cancer is hereditary. Years ago, I always thought, well, it was always hereditary. You got it from your mom or your dad or somewhere in the,
Yeah, they always ask that question.
From aunts or uncles or whomever, but only 5 to 10%. The other 90 to 95% is from what I call internal and external environmental events. What's an internal environmental event? That could be nutritional deficiencies, poor food habits over many years. And we think about it, we eat all kinds of confectionery junk, processed food, and I can go into that in great depth, but the food we eat today is awful.
It's sad. Standard American diet.
It is sad. Standard American diet. It's really bad for us. So there's that. There's all the chemicals we're exposed to. I think about all the chemicals we're exposed to in the environment everywhere. There are thousands of them. We don't even know about them. Think about, this right here. I think cell phone. I think in 20 years from now, there's going to be a real high incidence of brain cancer because of those cell phones. Radiation exposure. There's so many areas in terms of chemicals and toxins, unhealthy air, unhealthy water, unhealthy lifestyles, quite frankly. Most people who get cancer are 60 years old and up. There are people certainly who are kids that get it. There are pediatric cancer situations, but the pediatric situations are very, very few compared to the people who get cancer in that range of 55, 60 and upwards. So a lot of it's the environment.
Yeah, what I'm noticing though, it's the age is getting younger and younger and younger. Just like in our Facebook group, there are women in their 30s. The age is getting younger.
Yeah. It's getting younger because a lot of younger people, unfortunately, are exposed to a lot of these toxins, lousy food. And I mean, it's amazing that the garbage we put into our bodies. And nutrition is meaningful. The pesticides, the insecticides, the herbicides, and all of our plant foods, the hormones and the antibiotics we shoot into our cattle and our poultry, the garbage we feed our fish and farm fishing, and we eat what they eat. Right. What they get injected with, we consume, essentially. Mm-hmm. So we're consuming all kinds of things that over time, cumulatively, do damage to our cells and our bodies. And younger people are exposing themselves to these things too. Stress also is a factor. A high-stressed environment can weaken the immune system. And when you have a weak immune system, we're much more exposed to cancer. And everybody has cancer cells in their bodies, by the way, but most of us, or a lot of us, have an immune system that can handle and snuff out those cancer cells. But it's when those cancer cells create a beachhead within your body and get more potent and powerful, that's when we can have a problem.
Right. Yeah, and I talk about that in my group all the time. What we put on our body and in our body is, what we're eating is either feeding disease or starving disease. And the products that we are using on our bodies, I try to educate them on, things that we should use or shouldn't use. And and 11 years ago, I didn't think about those things. So prior to being diagnosed with breast cancer, I was oblivious. And the more I learned, the more I realized that it is environmental, because, we have hormone mimickers and just all the things that are damaging us and on the daily basis. So,
I mean, just think about the foods we eat. It's the animal protein, which is a lot. And I'm not, again, I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not a vegan, but I try to be careful with what I put into my body. You've got one body, and you might as well take care of it. If you take your car to the auto dealership to get an oil change every once in a while, take care of your body as well or better than you take care of your
right.
car.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. So what was one of the things that you learned from the cancer patients that you interviewed? What were the commonalities? What were the differences? What was the common thread?
Yeah, there was a couple of common threads with all of the people I interviewed. First was mindset and attitude. The people I talked to, and the hundreds of people I've talked to who have beaten the odds, all had this fighting spirit. If you have an attitude, as we discussed earlier, that is anxiety ridden, and there's going to be anxiety, but highly stressed. And if you have the perspective that you're not going to make it, it's not a good platform from which to start. But they all had this fighting spirit, and they would seek out and become self-advocates, seek out knowledge and information that would be cutting edge, innovative, things that standard of care didn't do. And I'm not saying you can't go down the road of standard of care and be cured of cancer or make it just a chronic situation and live another 30 years. I'm talking about optimizing your outcomes here. The other thing that people did is compliance and adherence to a multifaceted approach, not just a one-off approach. So if somebody says, well, I tried alternative, it didn't work. Well, what does alternative mean? We have something called standard of care. There's no standard of care for alternative or complementary. There's stuff in the alternative world which is, to put it bluntly, garbage. It won't work. Maybe it's the wrong dose. Maybe it's not appropriate for your situation. But there are things that are complementary and alternative that are highly, profoundly beneficial. So compliance to a multifaceted, comprehensive plan, personalized to you, based on objective criteria. What does objective criteria mean? Blood work, tissue samples, things of that nature, delivered by sophisticated experts with compassion. And if you can find that, multifaceted, comprehensive, personalized, objective criteria, experts with compassion, you've got a formula that is pretty darn good to optimize outcomes. So to simplify, mindset, compliance.
Yeah, and I see that, I mean, with anything, the attitude makes a huge difference in, like I'm in the classroom, and the students that I encounter, the ones that have the positive attitudes are the ones that are, thriving and doing well. So have an attitude of gratitude. And that, when we focus on the positive, that makes a world of difference in your attitude moving forward. Because if you're focused on the negative, then that's causing more stress. And we know that stress can feed the disease. So
if you're consumed with it all day long, all night long, it's tough. I remember there's somebody in the book who wrote a chapter, Jean Wallace, who's fantastic in the nutritional oncology world. And she told me that her mother had cancer. Her mother said, you know what, this cancer nonsense, after 12 noon every day, 12 noon, I'm done with cancer. I've got things to do. I've got to go to the grocery store. I need to go for my walk. I need to tend my garden. I need to take care of my kids. I'm too busy for cancer. Up till 12 noon, I'll deal with it. But she had this wonderful attitude that she was not going to let it consume her life. She was not a cancer person. She's a person who just happened to have cancer, but she also had a life.
Right. I love that. So are there safe and effective cancer treatments that are not part of the conventional standard of care, like chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and surgery? And what are these non-standard of care therapies?
Sure. I tend to look at, as I alluded to earlier, 4 or 5 things. One is what I'll call nutritional oncology, and that is utilizing science with the appropriate specialists, finding a path as to what works and what doesn't work. This is not just about eating broccoli and wild salmon, or or cauliflower and staying away from French fries. It's far more deep than that. And there are certain types of cancer that you should eat certain things and avoid certain things. And we need to look at blood work to assess your situation. So those are really important. What's your fibrinogen level? What's your C-reactive protein level? There's a lot of testing that can be done to assess and determine what to eat and what to stay away from. As we mentioned before, stay away from all that refined, processed junk, sugar and sugar equivalents. Cancer's a glutton for sugar. So try and eliminate that or mitigate that from your diet. GMO foods as well. Also, by the way, potatoes, pasta, bread, not good. Once potatoes and pasta and most breads hit your stomach, it converts to glucose. Again, glucose, cancer loves glucose by a factor of 6 to 10 times more than normal healthy cells. Animal world, we discussed that. Try and make your animal protein an appetizer and not that main course. Don't have a big fat juicy steak. Not good for colon cancer and not great as well. So in terms of eating certain things, leafy greens, spinach, kale, arugula, berries, organic vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, carrots, tomatoes, I can go on and on. And if you eat animal protein, make it pasture fed if it's beef, and organic otherwise, wild if it's fish. I try to go down that road. So there is a ton of evidence in the nutritional oncology world, and there's a ton of studies that you can even find yourself that support the notion that these can be helpful. Another area, supplementation. Now, supplementation sometimes gets a bad rap. What do I mean by that? You can get supplements at your local grocery store. You can go to Costco. You can go, there's 1,000 sites online where to buy supplements. But what kind? In what dose? With or without food? And for whom? And again, based on objective criteria, blood work, sometimes tissue samples, to assess whether or not you should take curcumin or green tea extract or quercetin or vitamin D3 or vitamin K with vitamin D3, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, again, there's a plethora of evidence. And I'll give you an example. There's a website called pubmed.gov, pubmed.gov. There's over 27 million studies there. And I spent innumerable hours on that website. If you put in the search engine of pubmed.gov, just the word curcumin cancer, you will see there are more than 4,000 studies. Fact, well over 4,000 studies that have been done regarding curcumin and how it interacts with cancer. I don't think there were 4,000 studies done because people just wanted to spend $1 zillion doing studies for the fun of it. The same thing regarding green tea, the same thing regarding these other things we've discussed. So yes, there's a lot of evidence that supports these things and the fact that it helps fight cancer. Another area, mind-body practices. What is mind-body?
Are you referring to like yoga and meditation? Is that what you're referring to?
It can mean meditation. Different things for different people. It can mean meditation. Somebody may enjoy meditation and may do it every day, can help calm your body down. Music can bring lots of profound benefits. Prayer, can be very helpful for many, many people. Humor can be very helpful. Being light about things.
Yeah. Laughter is the best medicine, you hear.
Right. Stress reduction classes. Perhaps seeing a psychologist to get things in perspective and not letting cancer consume your life. But mind body is very important because stress impacts the immune system. And we need a strong immune system to surveil, to find the cancer in your body and to attack the cancer appropriately. So there's lots of forms of that. And I'll mention one more, exercise. Everybody can exercise. If you're in a wheelchair, you can exercise. Just take those 2 cans of soup that you shouldn't eat from Campbell's in those cans, because that's processed food, and go like this every day. Exercise is something we should do as a general matter for maintenance of health. But if you've got cancer, we want to bring oxygen-rich blood to our tissues. We want to make it more of an aerobic environment, not an anaerobic environment. We want to reduce fatigue, reduce stress, reduce anxiety, and exercise does those things for us. We want to sleep better, and sleep is very important. We want to mitigate nausea. Those are things that can be very helpful. Also, social support. Surrounding yourself with the right people. You don't want to be around naysayers and people who
Right.
bring you down and who are calling you 3 times a day and saying, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? You need to set boundaries about what they can talk to you about. Perhaps you'll reach out to them. It's nice to hear from them once in a while, but you don't want to be barraged with these questions and people telling you what they think you should do.
Right.
So good, positive social support is important. These are things that people can bring to the table. And I also believe strongly when it comes to nutrition and supplementation, especially, utilize experts. And there's a couple in the book that wrote chapters on this, who I think are the best on the planet. And these are people I'd call if I was told tomorrow I had cancer. And they can be profoundly helpful in the success that you might have to have better outcomes.
Yeah. And, talking about diet, my brother has prostate cancer and went and saw a naturopath. He was going to have radiation done or surgery, and opted to try the natural route. And he switched to a plant-based diet, and his PSA count went from 6 to 3. So in just about 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, it's people don't believe it. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, too many conventional oncologists will say, eat what you want, it doesn't matter. I will say that's profoundly untrue.
Yeah.
They have no knowledge of this area. In fact, the National Academy of Science, I believe it was in 2010 or 2011, did a study of all the medical schools throughout the United States. 27%, just about 1/4 of all the schools, only 1/4 offered any kind of nutritional class. And this is just a general class. It had nothing to do with oncology. The other approximately 75% had no nutritional classes at all, as if nutrition was irrelevant. Again, what we eat, what we put in our bodies to nourish our bodies and our cells is profoundly beneficial. I mean, do you want to eat just cheeseburgers with bacon all day with fries piled high and a Coca-Cola at McDonald's? How will that compare to a plant-based diet with some healthy types of protein?
Right.
Common sense.
Yeah. So someone asked the question, what are your thoughts about alkaline diet?
An alkaline diet is, generally speaking, a good diet. But when it comes to diet, and that's a great question, I don't love the word diet. You've got
I don't either. Lifestyle.
Well, that's true too, certainly. But you've got all kinds of diet. You've got a paleo diet, you've got a Mediterranean diet, you've got a vegetarian diet, a vegan diet.
Yeah.
You got 10 different types of diets. There's Diet of the Week that comes out with a new book. The real thing we should utilize is go talk to a nutritional specialist in cancer, do blood work, appropriate blood work, and then they can assess specifically for your situation, personalized, not just something off the shelf of the local bookstore, the kind of nutritional diet, if you will, that'll be most advantageous for you. So that's what I really suggest doing. It costs some money to talk to top-notch consultants, but This is about your health. What's more important than that?
Well, and you have a lot of times you have to meet your insurance thing each year anyway. So invest that money in someone like that instead. So,
right.
So ladies, and if there are gentlemen watching, we have, like I said, Rick on here. We're talking about his book, Hope Never Dies. We are going to be giving away a signed copy. So tag 7 people that you think would be that would benefit from hearing this information. Put #excited and ask questions, make comments as we're talking here. Okay, so let's see here. What do I want to ask next? You kind of answered that just now. Should all cancer patients implement the same types of integrative and alternative treatments and therapies? You answered that with no.
We're all individuals.
So if the integrative and alternative treatments are so successful, why aren't conventional doctors using them?
That's easy. Conventional medicine, which comprises most of our doctors in this country, if not the world, are trained dogmatically to go to medical school in a certain way. Think about when you watch TV these days, how often do you see commercials pushing drugs?
See a lot of fast food commercials.
There's a lot of fast food commercials. There's a lot of pharmaceutical drug commercials out there. You've got grandma dancing in the meadow. The flowers are beautiful, playing with the grandkids. The world is gorgeous. And if she takes this drug, she'll last another 3 months. If you read the
And then
small,
you hear the things that you're supposed to be scared of at the end that are really, really fast and you can't understand them.
right. And if you look at this small font, you can barely read at the bottom of the TV screen carefully. You know, a lot of these drugs are only after you've gone through standard of care. These are drugs of last resort. So they're taught to go down the pharmaceutical road. I mentioned a few minutes ago, the National Academy of Science. They don't offer any classes in nutritional oncology. The gold standard, let's talk about the gold standard in the FDA.
Yeah, what role does the FDA play in cancer treatments and therapies?
Right, and it's critical. Doctors don't promote anything unless the FDA approves it. So if you have a naturopathic doctor or a functional medicine doctor or other specialist who says, here are 10 supplements I strongly recommend you take. And then you go back to your conventional doctor and says, well, this naturopath said I should take curcumin and vitamin D3 and quercetin and you know, IV liposomal vitamin C, blah, blah, blah. They'll say
frankincense. Just so you know.
And that as well. They'll say it's nonsense. And they'll say there's no proof that it works. Well, pursuant to conventional FDA medicine, there never will be proof. Why? Because to get something passed as a drug, first they look at cancer cell lines under the microscope. Then they will do animal studies, usually on mice. Then they'll do the scientists or the pharmaceutical companies who support 75% of the studies. Then they'll do a phase 1 study, which might be 30 people. Phase 2 might be a couple hundred people. Phase 3 might be 500 or more people. It generally takes 10 years or more to do these studies and often costs $1 billion or more to do a study. I kid you not. In fact, it was Tufts University who did a study. Again, this was it was around 2014, I believe, study of drug approval. Tufts University said it cost $2.5 billion in total to do a study. Now, why would someone spend $2.5 billion? Easy answer. Because they've got a 20-year patent and they make billions of dollars per year to
get a return on their investment.
A huge ROI, a huge return. You will never get any study. Let's say I said curcumin can be very powerful to mitigate inflammation. Inflammation drives cancer. Cancer drives inflammation. But you'll never get a study that goes to a phase 3. Why? Because you and I today can put out a product called curcumin. It's a natural agent. You cannot patent it. Without that patent, you don't have protection of your return on investment.
Okay.
They will say, oh, it's unproven. It's unproven pursuant to conventional medicine. But there's a ton of what's called epidemiological studies, observational studies, clinical evidence that shows that curcumin can be tremendously powerful and helpful when it comes to fighting cancer and mitigating inflammation. So there's a lot of studies out there, but not conventional pharmaceutical medicine that is supported by conventional, but not always as much by complementary people. Again, I'm not anti-drug, but fundamentally, there's lots of things besides drugs that can be so helpful.
But I think what is kind of sad to me is that it all is about how much money are they going to make off of it. And pharmaceutical companies.
Profits over patients. Yes.
Right.
Profits over patients.
Yeah. When there could be a better way.
We're also, it's very true. We live in a society, I believe, which is a quick fix society. We have a silver bullet mentality. Mm-hmm. Give me something that's going to make this go away, whether it's strep throat or a headache or cancer or whatever it is. Doc, what can I do to make it go away? It takes work. It's not just about a quick fix. You have to get not just to the symptom, but the underlying root causes that brought about this issue and this problem. That's where we need a comprehensive, multifaceted approach, personalized to the individual.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. This is a good question here. Does a stage 4 or terminal cancer prognosis mean that you will die from cancer? And how relevant are statistics when the doctor says you have a 20% chance to live another 2 years, or you have 3 to 6 months to live? And we have quite a few stage 4 women in our group that have metastatic cancer. So can you speak to that?
Absolutely. If you had told me 20 years ago, if you had stage 4 cancer, when I knew nothing about cancer, I'd say, well, I'm really sorry to hear that. Now, after I've spent thousands of hours studying cancer, I've been to 30 cancer conferences. I'm on the board of directors of 2 nonprofits, one in California, one in Florida, and I have taken a deep, deep dive into this whole world. I'm here to tell you because you have stage 4 or even a terminal prognosis, don't assume that what that doctor says is true. Don't assume when he or she says you got a 20% chance of making it in 5 years, it's true. And don't assume when they tell you you've got 3 to 6 months to live that that's true. The 20 people in the book talk about all these things. All these people were told, get your affairs in order. And I've met at least 500 people, I'm not exaggerating, who were told this by major cancer centers. I'm not going to name the cancer centers. I don't want them to get after my tail, but they are major cancer centers in the Northeast, in Texas and Minnesota and Florida, elsewhere around in Arizona, who throw their hands up and say, there's nothing more we can do. But then the patient's here 20 years later because they took action and found other integrative or complementary therapists who believed in them and fought for them. So yes, there's no guarantees in life, full disclosure, there's no guarantees in life, but I know so many people, mindset, we talked about it before, compliance, and finding that right team to go forward with, and lots of people can beat the odds.
Do you think that a lot of them are like in one area of the United States, or are you gonna have to fly to another country? Or do you feel like it doesn't matter where you live, that there's someone that you can find that can help you?
In the United States, there are people, not in every state, not in every city, but there are people in many areas that can be very helpful, but people just don't know about them. There are people, for example, there's a couple of people in the book who went abroad, who actually went to Europe. Two went to Europe, one went to Mexico, the other 17 worked within the United States. But there are people out there. And there are some people you can work with, from afar, consultatively when it comes to the oncology nutritional area or the supplementation area. And you can work with them and send tissue samples. You can work with them and send them blood work and reports on blood work and things like that. But there are people out there that can be profoundly, profoundly helpful. But there are certain cities, like I said, that don't have an abundance of people. In Arizona, where I am, in the Metro Phoenix area, there happens to be a naturopathic school here. And there's only about 4 or 5 in the entire country that are really highly accredited. But there are certainly people in that arena all over. Again, I believe in an integrative approach, not just alternative, but there's several people in the book who just went alternative and are doing great 10 to 25 years later.
So the two can work very well together.
Yes, they can, as long as you have open-minded people who will talk to each other and be open to the fact that both worlds, both camps can contribute to a much more enhanced outcome.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
And when it comes to chemo, I don't know if you want to talk about that or not. There's different types of chemo.
Yes. So what about chemotherapy? Tell us.
You asked me 20 years ago if somebody should use, well, my dad went on chemo. And
Should
then
it be used as a therapy?
The answer, in my opinion, is yes, in certain circumstances. Yes, in certain circumstances. I think chemo was far too often used and at much too high toxicity levels, high dosages. But when you have a fast growing cancer and we need to slow that freight train down, that cancer down, yes, there's a place for it when nothing else is working. That's important. There are certain types of cancers in the lymphoma world, in the leukemia world, testicular cancer, certain pediatric cancers, and a few others that can work well with chemo. But in my opinion, when it comes to choosing the appropriate chemo drugs, conventional medicine takes something off the shelf. They say, okay, for pancreatic cancer, we use this drug. And for that type of cancer, we use that drug. But you're an individual. There are 2 doctors in this country, both happen to be in California, Dr. Robert McGurney and Dr. Wiesenthal. They do a chemosensitivity test, which I think is the finest in the world. and I've talked to doctors from Europe about this. They say these two are the best. They take a tissue sample from the individual. Now, you don't have to live in Southern California to do this, but you do have to have a tissue sample excised, a 1 gram sample. It's put in special medical tubes, sent to them overnight. And then in 7 days, they'll test it against 12 different types of chemo and chemo combinations to see what works best. Think about it when you have a culture of your throat. You think you may have strep throat. The doctor takes a culture from your throat, puts it under a microscope, gets back to you in a few days and said, this is the best antibiotic for it. Why not with chemo cells? So with cancer cells, excuse me. So I think there's a better way to choose the drug.
Well, that's brilliant, because your body's not going through hell as they try to figure out which one's going to work for you.
Going through hell with something that doesn't work and beats the heck out of you.
Right.
Number two, there's something called the metronomic approach. Metronomic means less dose, smaller dose over a longer period of time. And in those cases, the side effects are much, much less. And thirdly, how do you mitigate? How do you lessen the toxic, harsh side effects? There's several ways to do that. There's really 3 ways that I think are very beneficial. One is fasting. There's a doctor out of Southern California named Dr. Walter Longo. He's at the University of Southern California. He's a PhD. He's the patriarch of fasting. And if you fast the day before, the day of, and the day after you do your chemo, it can be profoundly beneficial. Now, you might say, oh my gosh, fasting 3 days in a row? How can I do that? Well, some people don't have the vitality to do it, but it doesn't mean a pure fast. You can drink certain light tea, certain broth, and water. But if you can do that, you put your healthy cells into hibernation. They go into dormancy, but your cancer cells are wide open, and the chemo goes after the cancer cells, but it does not go after the healthy cells. So it mitigates toxicity dramatically. Number 2, acupuncture. Now, this is anecdotal, but there's a plethora of anecdotal evidence that acupuncture right after chemotherapy can be very effective in mitigating toxicity. Number 3, and you need experts for this, certain botanicals, certain herbs taken, before and right after chemotherapy can be profoundly effective in lessening the toxic side effects. The side effects are pretty direct, as you know. And again, you need to talk to experts about what types of botanicals and herbs, because it varies depending on your cancer.
Right.
But those 3 things, fasting, acupuncture, and certain botanicals, can mitigate toxicity. So with that formula in mind, get the right drugs, perhaps a metronomic approach, and mitigating side effects. It's a great thing to do. And actually, there's one more. There's a doctor in the Midwest, Dr. Keith Block, again, wrote a chapter. And Block has a unique methodology called chronomodulated chemo. Chrono as in chronology, timing of things, modulated, modified. So he only gives chemo at certain times of the day when your cancer cells are most vulnerable.
Oh, I didn't know that. Certain times of the day?
Certain times of the day. Think about it. When a doctor says, come in on Tuesday for chemo, they say, okay, come in at 9 o'clock. They line you up. They put you in the chemo chairs. They put the infusion in. You listen to music maybe. And that's it. It's at the doctor's convenience. But with Block, Dr. Block, you could be in the produce section of the drugstore. You've got a little pack. Literally, you've got a little pack that you're getting your chemo when you're picking out your arugula and kale, or you're on your treadmill getting your chemo. And he has pioneered that as well. He doesn't do it the conventional way, but Keith Block's had fantastic outcomes with patients. So, but he's the only one in the country I know who does that, and he's in Chicago. But the other methods we talked about, look into it if you're going to go down the chemo road.
Okay, I'm trying to invite somebody here. I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to invite another person that wanted to be on here. So people were messaging me trying to watch. So, wow. Well, I just find that fascinating that they can test your chemo. I know when I was going through breast cancer, I was a part of a study called the Tailor X study. You know how you tailor make something, they're tailor designing your treatment plan. But, that was, they did do an ONCA test on my tumor, and based off of my ONCA score would determine whether I would have chemo or not. Now, my ONCA score fell in the middle, so they weren't quite sure if I would benefit from it or not. And so I was randomly selected to do chemo. But there again, I'm not sure how much, you know, did they really tailor make it or what was it? So,
Well, I like it. If someone told me tomorrow I had cancer and I really required chemo, I'd be talking to Dr. Nagurney or Dr. Wiesenthal in Southern Cal. I want the best type of chemo that I know is going to work, not just
right,
hurt my body,
right, right.
without getting benefit.
With no, right, it's not without a positive outcome. So is the research ever changing or are integrative and alternative cancer treatments the same as they were 10 years ago?
It is changing like anything. It changes slowly, but science constantly evolves. And what a lot of people called quackery 20 years ago is now integrative medicine. So things change. I'll give you a quick example. There's a doctor, a PhD. This is not directly related to cancer, but a guy named Dr. Dan Sheckman, a PhD, and he was an intrepid scientist. He was thrown out of his research group, his chemistry research group in 1982, because they said he was just a quack. He had ridiculous theories he wanted to promote. Well, that was in 1982. Guess who won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 2011? 29 years later. And they all said, wow, Sheckman was so ahead of his time, we didn't recognize it. We thought he came up with ridiculous theories, and he could see things, and he had a vision to see things that were more brilliant than his group could see it. And these were one of the highest level scientists in the world. My point in saying that is there are people now promoting certain therapies and treatments that 20 years from now will be looked at as brilliant, but they're available now. But some people look at them in a very dismissive manner. A lot of conventional people say that it's misinformation or it's just quackery itself. But a lot of things right now that are on the cutting edge that I'm talking about that are discussed in Hope Never Dies are wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. And I know you don't talk about that in your book, and we're not going to go into it, but just I hear the same thing when I talk about essential oils because, they're not FDA approved, but there's tons of research to support the benefits of them and how they can help, I won't say cancer, I will say mutated cells. So I have to be compliant here. But until you have an experience yourself, whether, doing the plant-based diet or herbs or supplements or oils, then you're not going to believe it until you have a personal experience and that aha moment. So.
Well, there's certain things we're talking about that don't do what's called cytotoxic approaches. Cytotoxic means killing the cancer cell. Some of these things are supportive of the microenvironment and the immune system. And so those things to mitigate inflammation, to support the immune system, there's a whole plethora of things it can do. It's kind of like a garden. To have a successful garden, you want to have enough sunlight, appropriate good water, good soil. And for example, if you've got weeds in your front lawn and you just take the lawnmower and you cut the head of the weed off, it looks good, but you still have
They're going to come back.
They've got these seeds underneath that you can't see of these weeds that will come back. So you need to get to the root causes. So a lot of these things deal with root causes and issues that can make your body inhospitable to cancer.
I like that word, inhospitable. So, all right. Let's see here. If my cancer doctor tells me I should get my affairs in order, does that mean I'm wasting time and money seeking out alternative and integrative medical options?
I got 2 words for you. Absolutely no. However, again,
how much? Because if they say you're stage 4, you've got 6 weeks to live, what do you do first?
Well, the people I know personally and have come across hundreds were told you've got 3 to 6 weeks to live. You've got 2 months to live. In the book, Elizabeth Pankey, 1999, in October, she was told, lady, you won't make it till Christmas. She's retired, enjoying her grandchildren, doing great. Janet Summer was told in 1995, 25 years ago, you got 3 to 6 weeks to live by a major hospital in Cleveland. She had metastatic lung cancer, which had spread into her pancreas, stomach, and liver. She's doing great. Fantastic. She was in the hospice and came out of hospice.
Wow.
Anne Fonfa, who runs the conference in Florida that I'm on the board of directors of, she had 25 breast recurrences and chest wall recurrences. 25. And
Yeah,
that
it's
was in I believe she was diagnosed in
1993.
Yeah. So
If you
my
don't do
point is,
chemo, you will die. If you don't do radiation, you will die. By two
yeah,
different doctors in New York City.
and again, as one oncologist said to me, an open-minded oncologist who is fantastic, Dr. Dwight McKee, he said, according to stage 4, pursuant to conventional cancer, he said, that means you're not curable. When you hear the words not curable, it's an oh my gosh moment. But that's pursuant to conventional medicine. I know so many stage 4 people who are here 15, 20, 25 years later, but you got to get on the right approach and right path with the right people. Don't believe your cancer doc when they say that you're done, you've got a limited time frame.
All right, I have another question here. Sandy asked, did these 500 people at stage 4 cancer refuse chemotherapy and only do what you are recommended, or was it a mix?
A lot of them are a mix, and I don't tell people not to do chemotherapy. I don't say you shouldn't do it. There is a place for it. And a lot of these people I met at conferences, they weren't, clients of mine. They were just people I met, along the way at conferences. So a lot of people take an integrative approach. A lot of people start off strictly conventionally. They're told to get your affairs in order. Then they find other doctors or healthcare practitioners who can keep them alive, and they're still alive and thriving. Some people take a different approach and just go an alternative approach. Anne Fonfred just took an alternative approach. She did not do chemo or radiation. She did do surgery, but not chemo or radiation. And then there's a woman named Holly Quinn, also in the book, breast cancer. She did not do chemo or radiation, as she did have a lumpectomy, but she was told if you don't do chemo or radiation, she was also told you'll die within a year. She just went strictly down a botanical approach, botanical and herbs, with one of the finest people in America in that arena, the guy named Donnie Yance out of Oregon. So it's a real mix, but most of them went through an integrative approach, but they had that fighting spirit. And they found the right team to take them forward, and they didn't quit.
Okay, let's see here. Do we have any, what are your thoughts about alkaline? I could have sworn I saw another question. Okay, all right. Let me get back to my questions here. Did we do this one? Can you give a few examples of people who were given terminal prognosis, who are surviving and thriving? Yes, you just talked about that. So what is, we're already at 9:09, so I don't want to take up too much more time. What's the most important thing a cancer patient should do when he or she gets a cancer diagnosis?
In my opinion, the very first thing they should do is breathe. Take a deep breath, slow it down, because this cancer didn't come up 3 weeks ago. It's been brewing from its seminal cause. It could be, some people think 15 to 20 years. Some people think it's been at least 8 to 10 years when it started in your system, but you just didn't know about it, and you couldn't even see it because scans couldn't see it because it was so microscopic. But slow it down. Don't panic. Don't make impulsive decisions. Get a number of opinions from specialized experts, and don't listen to all the well-meaning family and friends, all the noise out there saying, I've got a great doc for you. You need to do this. You need to do that. Slow it down. This is your life. So don't forget to breathe and take your time when it comes to making important decisions. Don't let them rush you into surgery next week or chemotherapy next week, because this took years and years to evolve to its current status anyway.
Yeah, because it when you find out, it's like, get it out of me.
Right.
Because I don't want it to grow anymore. So please take it out. So,
And it's not just about getting it out of you,
or take it out.
because a lot of times, even if you do chemotherapy, chemotherapy might destroy 95 to 97% of the cancer, but there's something called stem cancer cells, and there's maybe 3 to 5% that survive that we can't see, and they may come back 5 years later or even 3 years later. So take your time and come up with a good approach. Don't panic if you can help it. After a few days, try to relax, try to breathe, and say, okay, we're going to deal with this, and create that team, create those people, bring them to the table that can take you forward to beat this thing, or to control this thing, or to make it just a chronic thing where it doesn't grow. And maybe it'll still be there 20 years from now, but it doesn't impact your life. But you need to change your life. You need to change your historical habits and your lifestyle.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's like saying I want to lose weight, so I'm going to exercise, but you go and eat all 3 meals at McDonald's.
Or you lose your weight, then you stop and say, oh, I'm there. Now I can cheat and have whatever I want. And then you cheat a little bit more and you're right back where you started
Yeah.
at the beginning.
Yeah. And when I was going through chemo, I was teaching, well, I'm still teaching, but I was teaching full time during my chemo, which in hindsight, I wish that I had taken the time off to focus on getting better instead of trying to keep up with my family and keep up with my job. But I ended up in the hospital the second week of school because I was neutropenic, and they fed you 3 meals a day. Well, every single one of them, I had dessert because I was in the hospital and they were feeding me, and that was not doing any good at all. But when you know better, you do better. So, okay, let's see here. Connie says, thank you. She just got diagnosed with metastatic liver cancer, started in breast 2 years ago. Any suggestions? She's devastated that it went to the liver. She just found out yesterday.
Her name is Connie?
Yeah, Connie, it is in Connecticut.
Okay, Connie, I would say this. First of all, I'm sorry to hear about your diagnosis. However, and I mean this sincerely, I have known women out there and men, but actually I know more women in this arena. Women are more open about talking about these things, who have had metastatic cancer that has gone to the liver, the lungs, the brain, and other places, and who are here 20 years later. But my suggestion is that there are certain doctors that I would contact. I don't know if I should name them all here. Connie can contact me if she likes, if you want to give her my email address, or we can do that at the end. And
Yeah.
I'll talk to Connie and tell her who I think I would call and talk to, and to assess her situation and do things she needs to do to bring her back to a much healthier status. But don't throw the towel in, Connie. I know a lot of people who were told they're terminal or stage 4 metastatically, and who are here thriving many years later. It can happen. Excuse me, it can happen.
That's great. Connie, I'm so glad that you're here. She messaged me yesterday to tell me what was going on. And I messaged her back and I'm like, you need to be on tomorrow night and hear the guy who wrote this book. So I'm glad that she's here. All right, last question, because I want to respect your time and everybody on here that's been on here for a while. What are the most important takeaways? And if you guys have questions, please put them in now, because this is going to be my last question. And if you want a signed copy of his book, a chance to win his book, tag 7 people that you think would benefit from hearing him, and put #excited, and ask a question or make a comment. All right, my final question. What are the most important takeaways, the most important things cancer patients should know from your research, interviews, and in your book, Hope Never Dies?
All right, I'll sum up a few things that we've actually talked. Number 1, don't forget to breathe. You are not a statistic. Remember that. You are not a statistic. You are an individual.
Everybody say that. Put #not a statistic.
It's really true. Become an active self-advocate. Be careful about all the noise you hear from friends and relatives and family. A self-advocate, and make careful, important decision for yourself, personalized to you. There are various ways to fight cancer. There are various ways to attain healing and wellness, not just solely standard of care. Also, there is a place for the warrior persona. I'm going to fight cancer and beat it, but also become a cancer scholar, not just a warrior, but a scholar. Learn about things that you can do. Create a team of people who truly care and who are supportive, whether that's social support or team in terms of someone who's an expert in the nutritional arena, supplementation arena, and that can be the same person, somebody who's open to novel ways of dealing with it integratively. Also, be intentional in your actions to strengthen your body and fight cancer. This is about you. Everything you put in your mouth, everything you decide not to put in your mouth in terms of nutrition and food to create greater wellness, supplements that'll help support your immune system, exercise, we talked about before, mind, body, calming down. It could be prayer, laughter, meditation, music, or whatever works. Transform yourself, become the new you. And finally, I just would encourage you not to quit, because life is worth living. Fight hard. There was one woman in the book, Janet Summers, and Janet is in Ohio. She was in hospice for over a year. She was in hospice, and she's not there anymore. She transformed herself while she was in hospice. She got remarried. She's living the life. She rides her bike around the neighborhood every day. Janet's in her mid 70s. And there's a lot of stories out there like that. So keep moving forward and don't believe everything you hear from certain doctors who don't know it all.
When you said, do your research, is Google the best place to start?
Well, again, that's a tricky area. I mean, that's a fair question. Google has a lot of junk in the internet. There are naysayers. There are charlatans out there who will want to sell you some garbage approach and say, here, give me $10,000 and I'll save your life. And I detest people like that who take advantage of people who are vulnerable.
Right.
But there are also very good people out there that we can find. I'm not trying to be promoting. I'm really not. But there's 5 people in the book, Hope Never Dies, who I think are fantastic that I would call. Beyond that, there are people, like I said, integrative oncologists at the SIO organization. There's naturopaths who are FABNO accredited, FABNO. There are certain functional medicine people who are very holistic and integrative that exist out there. There are specialists in these areas, and you need to seek them out. If they don't live in your area, you can talk to them and deal with them sometimes over the web and do consults where they can guide you. So you want to be with people who are highly experienced, who have integrity, and who are sophisticated in this area.
I like that. Okay, so we have a question here. What are your thoughts on grades of breast cancer? Because when I was going through it, I didn't hear that, but all the ladies in the group that are recently diagnosed will say I'm stage 1, grade 1, 2, 3. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it kind of goes to the issue of how serious is the cancer. I mean, from a staging status or a grading status. I'm just going to go back, default to my comment before. You're not a statistic. So if somebody says you have a certain grade, which is a scary grade level or stage status, that's how they've diagnosed you. Okay, we keep going forward. We can't change what someone's opinion is of us in terms of a diagnosis. I just will go back to the comments before there. I know stage 4. I know people who are told you got 3 weeks, 6 months, 3 months, all kinds of cancer. And I think you had said, Christie, there were 6 people out of the 20 that happened to be breast cancer individuals who were thriving, who took a lot of commonality in their approaches, but there's sometimes different approaches. One with botanical medicine with Downey Yance, Anne Fonfa with Dr. George Wang, a Chinese medicine guy who went to Harvard. That's an interesting combination. Harvard PhD, Chinese medicine, same person. There's Julie. Who there's a gal named Julia, in fact, up in Connecticut, who had breast cancer. She worked with MD Anderson, and she worked also with other open-minded people in the New York City area. There's a gal I know, Julia Zonheiser from Florida. She actually went to Europe. She worked with some doctors in Germany. But there's various ways. Don't let the staging freak you out. One thing I will say in terms of blood work, your C-reactive protein, C as in the letter C, as in C as in Canada, C-reactive protein, CRP number is important. That indicates internal inflammation. And according to Dr. Gene Wallace, that's more important in staging. You want to get your C-reactive protein number under 1.0. because that indicates inflammation. When you have high internal inflammation, that means you got stuff going on inside your body, which is not great. Curcumin is something which can bring it down, and other methodologies as well. So
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
that's all. I think I covered it. That a
Yeah.
diagnosis is a diagnosis. We still need to just go forward and put together the plan.
Well, talking about inflammation, 2 years ago when I decided to go dairy free after being advised by a holistic friend of mine, just all I did was eliminate dairy. I lost 20 pounds just from eliminating dairy because I had that much inflammation in my body. So,
Yep.
so it was interesting.
These have a cascade of benefits. We're trying to deal with cancer, but it can also bring you health in other areas.
Right.
Just your entire body.
Right. So, Chris from Canada asked if she can get your email. Do you mind if I post it? Do you want me to do that privately for people? Do you want me to post
Oh,
it?
that's fine. My email, my best email is Rick. I'll say it right now, and you can post it as well.
Okay.
It's Rick, RICK, at hopeneverddies.com. Or you can do Rick at hopeneverddies.com, or you can go to the website for the book, which is hopeneverddies.com, and you can reach me through the contact information at the website. Either way, and I'll get you.
And I put his website in the description of the video. Christie is in Canada, and she has metastatic brain cancer. Christie, if you want to share any other information about that, I met her maybe a year and a half ago. So
there are 2 people in the book who had brain cancer.
We have like 3, I can think of 3 people, Rachel, Christie, and Gina, who all have metastatic brain cancer. So thank you, Connie. Connie's like putting the notes in the comments for us. Thank you, Connie. So awesome. Let me see if there are any other questions here. Jane said, looking forward to reading your book. So remember, if you want a chance to win his book, signed copy, hashtag excited, tag 7 people in the group that you think would benefit from this information. So thank you very much, Rick. I so appreciate you taking the time to be here with us tonight and to share your wealth of knowledge. Like, I could talk to you for hours just gaining more information, and I loved reading your book. Just I could relate to what they were going through and the fear, when you find out that you have cancer, and the fear, and you just you want the best, but fear sometimes gets in the way of that. So thank you for reminding us to breathe and, take your time making that decision. So,
yes. My pleasure.
So you just told us how we can find you, hopeneverddies.com.
hopeneverddies.com or Rick at hopeneverddies.com. Yes, you can find me.
And how can they find your book? Can they find it on your website? And I got it on Amazon.
Either way, you can get it on Amazon. There's also, by the way, there's a couple other books called Hope Never Dies, but make sure you throw in there.
I know.
They really are. Hope Never Dies, Rick Shapiro.
Yesterday, I'm like, until I put your name in, it was like this red book, and it looked kind of like a James Bond movie or something.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. You can't, when it comes to titles of books, you can't trademark it. Anybody can use the title, but yes, Amazon, you can find it on Amazon, or you can go through the book website, hopeneverddies.com, and you can get it through there, or you can go to your local bookstore, and if they don't have it, you can order it at your local bookstore, and they'll send it to you. Either way.
Okay, and Christy, who's in Canada, said, I had gamma knife radiation. It was horrible. And awake brain surgery that was in February. And she wants to know, is your book on Audible?
It is not. Oh, wait, it is, no, it's on Kindle, but not Audible. It's not Audible, but you can, it's Kindle or the soft cover you have there.
Right. Okay. I think that I got all the questions. Let me make sure. Oh, here's a question. If you don't mind, one more question here. Katie says, I'm on Medicare and an additional supplemental insurance. I have no copays or deductibles, and I don't have tons of money to spend, but I have changed my diet, supplements, etc. to help. No help or support from oncologists, really. Where do people like me go? How would I find an oncologist more open to the natural ways, but still have my insurance cover everything I've changed has come from her own research? Can you answer that one?
You know, regarding a couple of people I have great respect for, I would talk to Jean Wallace. She's in the book. She wrote a chapter about nutritional oncology. I think she's brilliant. You may not get Jean on the phone. You may get her colleague, Michelle. But, and again, it does cost money. No one does this for, they make a living doing this.
Right.
I think they're
right.
brilliant, and they could guide you when it comes to nutrition. I know you said you improve your diet, but we want to get you an A+ in terms of your nutritional work, not just a B or a B-. So you may be doing great work now. And in the supplementation area, Jean Wallace or Michelle can help as well. And their website is nutritional-solutions.net. Nutritional-solutions.net is their website. Also, in terms of supplementation, there's a guy named Donnie Yance, Y-A-N-C-E. Also brilliant in the supplementation area. You may want to do a consult with one of his people up there who are experts, and they might be able to help guide you as well. Those would be people I would call personally if I was told I had cancer tomorrow.
Thank you. I hope that helped, Katie. All right. Well, Rick, thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. I will announce the winner of his book tomorrow night at 8 in the group. So stay tuned. Tag more people because they can watch the replay. So thank you so much, Rick. I appreciate you being here tonight.
My pleasure. Keep the faith, keep the hope, and keep moving forward.
And don't hang up, Rick. I'm just going to end it here.
Okay.
Okay. Good night, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And next week, I have Dr. Pingle. She is also from Arizona. She is a naturopath, and she's going to be talking to us about ways to boost your immune system. So, and we will be talking about stress again. So, all right. Thanks, you guys. Have a great night.